I'd like to give a little introduction before I begin to give this speech as to how it all came to be. In 1993, I was invited to speak at the dedication of the Vietnam Memorial at the Bethel Bastille in Allentown, in Bethlehem. There was a congressman there by the name of Paul McHale, and he found it to be quite an interesting piece of work. And he entered it in the opening proceedings of the 103rd Congressional Congress of the United States of America. Again, in 1993, in September, I was invited to give the same speech at a ceremonial raising of the POW flag at Cedar Crest College in Allentown. Good morning to everyone, and to all my veteran friends who are here today. Welcome home. As a woman, it is a real honor for me to be here today, to be with you, because the great tradition of Memorial Day began very quietly with American women. They came in the spring of the year to the graves of soldiers, both north and south. The battlefield was silent, and upon the graves of the soldiers, the women scattered the flowers of spring to offer beauty and peace for those who had died in the ugly horror of combat. The great Civil War was but 3 years gone when General John A. Logan took note of this tribute and declared May 30th a day to remember all Union soldiers. Nearly 2 centuries later, we have come again to scatter flowers on the graves. The battlefields have grown over the years. Antietam and Gettysburg, El Caney and San Juan Hill, Bellevue Wood and Chateau Thierry, Anzio and Corregidor, Bastogne and Guadalcanal, Anzio, Corregidor, Normandy, Bataan, Pearl Harbor, Midway, Busan, Tucson, Pork Chop Hill, Ankh, Lai Khe, Tay Ninh, Lebanon, and the Persian Gulf. Once again, the battlefield is silent. The musket and the missile, the cannon and the carbine, the machine gun and the mortar have been put away, leaving us only with the memory of the caissons bearing the flag-draped caskets of our brothers and sisters in arms. They were ordinary men and women who served their nation with pride and dignity and perished in 1,000 and more battles, large and small, some with names we will never forget, and others long forgotten around the globe. It is upon their graves that we lay the flowers of spring. The passage of time has thinned our ranks, but not our memory of what combat was like. It may be heroic, but truly it isn't glamorous. It may be noble, but certainly it is terrifying. It may have a purpose, but in the end, it seemed like such a senseless way to settle differences. But these little frivolities are the symbols of what our days on the battlefield were all about. For our loved ones, security, comfort, peace, and love. And we want to remember this, and if only for a moment, to stop and pause to honor those who gave their lives for us and to scatter the flowers of spring upon their graves. It is my honor to stand here today as a nurse who served in Vietnam, representing the many combat nurses over the years who struggled in sometimes terrible conditions to save the lives of those who fell on the field. Sometimes nurses themselves were victims. Margaret Nash of Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, was a Navy nurse. She was stationed in the Philippines and during World War II, and taken prisoner. She spent 41 months in Santo Tomas, where her weight dropped to 70 pounds. She contracted tuberculosis, and she and other nurses lived on berries and the few rations given them by a compassionate guard. Their conditions were deplorable, although Margaret was never beaten or tortured. However, there was little humanity in her care. One morning, after 41 months of clinging to life, the prisoners were made aware that their lives were about to end. However, in a remarkable twist of fate, General MacArthur dropped paratroopers, and the prisoners were set free. Margaret was pictured holding a child in her arms. She was returned to the United States, where she spent months in the hospital trying to regain her strength and her health. 50 quiet years later, she died, and they laid the flowers of spring upon her grave. But no one ever knew the anguish that she had in her heart. Women, too, answered the bugler's call in Vietnam. I was among approximately 264,000 women who served voluntarily during the war. We were Red Cross volunteers, clerical workers, journalists, entertainers, flight attendants, doctors, and approximately 7,000 of us were nurses. We cared for those who bore the wounds of battle, and like many, came home to try desperately, and I mean desperately, to make meaning of it all. I would not be a nurse unless I gave you instructions and directions. So my prescription to y'all today is everybody here who is in the military, after the service, I'm asking that you say to the person next to you something that you recall when you were in the service. You want the memory to be passed on. A memory, a memorial, a day of remembrance, a time to remember and a time to let go, a time to honor all the men and women who died in service to their country, a time to express pride in our veterans and to again welcome them home. High and clear and true, in the echoes of the guns, the buglelists, the old notes of taps, the lullaby for the living soldier, and the requiem for those who have passed on. Save for the bugle, the battlefield is silent. Yet, and yet, we hear the steady beat of the drum again in distant places, and pray that the world will never know what we and those laid to rest here knew and knew so well. We pause to listen to the faraway call to arms, and a tear comes to our eye. Upon how many more graves must we scatter the flowers of spring? And how many more battles must be added to the roster? We wipe the tear away and we lift our chins. We have scattered the flowers of spring. We were and will always be soldiers, citizens of a free land, warriors in time of need, guardians of a great heritage, answering the roll call of the battalions and regiments of history, but always soldiers. And we will always answer duty's call for as long as it takes, for as often as it takes, to protect that which we hold dear: freedom, America, and the memories that dwell in this sacred ground. Thank you.